Within Legends and canon, some of the best and most well-known Darth Vader stories demonstrate the confidence and power of the Sith Lord. Unquestionably, one of the two most powerful individuals in the galaxy, as he commanded immeasurable strength in tapping into the power of the dark side. However, Vader didn't always see such a future for himself where he could approximate and even surpass the abilities and powers that he enjoyed as the Jedi Knight Anakin Skywalker. In the early weeks of the Imperial era, there was a time when Vader believed that his best-case scenario, the ceiling in which he might reach, was that of General Grievous, both in terms of his abilities and in his adherence and attachment to the machinations of his master Darth Sidious. When looking at how Vader viewed himself and his situation in the weeks that followed Order 66 and his defeat on Mustafar, it's easy to see why Vader made this conclusion, believing he was more of a military asset for the Empire rather than an emerging Sith Lord with endless potential on the path of the dark side. We've discussed it in previous videos, but as a brief recap, to say that these initial weeks were a psychological low for Vader would be an understatement. In terms of his command of the Force and abilities with it, Vader recognized he was far weaker than he'd been previously as the Jedi Anakin Skywalker. Vader lacked Anakin's skill and confidence, and felt uncertain of his position within the Force itself, unsure about how to channel and sustain its power. In this way, it's no wonder why Vader started to see himself on the same level as Grievous, as he believed that everything he'd endured on Mustafar had caused him to lose his strength with the Force. But there was something even more insidious in the thoughts of Vader as he took measure of his place within the Empire in the immediate aftermath of Episode 3. Not only had he completely lost his way with the Force, but he began to believe that his decreased abilities were related less to his injuries and were more so the result of his suit and cybernetics. As Vader engaged the Jedi survivors of Order 66, including an embarrassing performance against the Jedi Knight Bol Shatak, who was an unremarkable lightsaber duelist, Vader began to fear that there was another cause for concern. It wasn't simply that he faced the potential the loss of his limbs resulted in his loss of strength in the Force, but the suit itself wasn't merely a cause of discomfort. It was the cause of his decreased abilities. In having come relatively close to being defeated by Bol Shatak, Vader recognized he was a prisoner to his suit, and even worse, it was the suit itself that slowed his reflexes, overburdened him with inefficient designs, and hampered his skills that once came so easily for him. At this point, Vader saw a possibility that would cause him to draw a significant comparison between himself and Grievous. He considered that it was his Master Sidious who deliberately created these circumstances, causing Vader to actually experience fear. It wasn't merely that the deficiencies of his suit and the detrimental effects they had on his abilities with the Force were punishment for his failure on Mustafar. Vader actually thought it was likely Mustafar provided Sidious with the excuse he needed to weaken him. In this way, Vader saw that perhaps Sidious welcoming him to the dark side in Sith had been a scheme, with no intention of Vader becoming a true apprentice. Vader considered that rather than making him a Sith apprentice who would learn the ways of the dark side, Sidious merely recruited him so he had someone capable of commanding the Empire's army of stormtroopers, merely filling a military component for the Empire rather than anything to do with the Force. And with this thought, Vader came to a startling realization. While Sidious enjoyed the true rewards of his machinations, gaining everything that came through the destruction of the Jedi and Republic, Vader was nothing more than Grievous, a new version of the Separatist general. You can see why this made sense for Vader at this point. The urgently sudden way in which his suit was fashioned and then limited him, combined with a significant reduction in his Force ability, Sidious could be confident that Vader posed no threat to him, as his apprentice simply carried out the commands directed towards the Imperial military, leaving Vader to the mercy of Sidious's orders. In the end, given the similarities they shared through their cybernetics and the way in which they served Sidious, Vader feared he was only the latest version of Grievous. Now clearly, this conclusion made by Vader wouldn't last long, and he certainly wouldn't see himself as merely another General Grievous for the remainder of the Imperial era. So how did Vader abandon the notion that he was merely destined to become a second Grievous for Sidious? There are a few important secondary realizations made by Vader that would help to change his outlook. For example, Vader would soon rediscover the power he once had with the Force, surpassing even that which he felt as Anakin by finding the true power of the dark side, symbolically crossing over into a new world. Not only that, but Vader would also come to realize at some point that the limitations of his suit and cybernetics were not part of some grand scheme orchestrated by Sidious. He would ultimately accept that just the opposite was true. As seen within the novel Death Star, Vader realized that after Mustafar, there simply wasn't time to fashion a suit and create life support systems that specifically met his needs in the most efficient way. While much of the technology was adapted from Grievous's cybernetics, and therefore hardly the best available technology, the connection stopped there, as Vader's suit was simply the best that could be done at the time, and he and the suit were one no matter what his opinion of it was. But the primary motivation for Vader dismissing his belief that Sidious always intended for him to serve the Empire and the Sith simply as another Grievous came with the recognition that the events that led to his situation in the early weeks of the Empire were not the product of Sidious tricking him in the same way that Sidious had duped Grievous into serving the Sith. As revealed in the novel Dark Lord: The Rise of Darth Vader, this realization made by Vader demonstrates that even in the earliest weeks of the Empire, Vader knew far more about Sidious's long-term plans than it may seem, including how Grievous came to his position as the commander of the Separatist droid army. Grievous was tricked by the Sith into serving them during the Clone War. The Sith orchestrated a shuttle crash that would lead to Grievous being refashioned with his own cybernetics, with further alterations to his mind that made him adopt the personality that made him the fearsome general he was throughout the war. As Vader realized, while Grievous may have been the product of Sidious utilizing the essence of the dark side that called for any means to be used to bring about one's desired end, this wasn't so with Vader. Instead, Vader eventually saw that his mission to Mustafar involved only one goal for Sidious: for Vader to annihilate the Separatist Council in helping to end the war. That was the only reason behind Sidious sending him to the planet, with no other schemes involved. Perhaps even more tragic, Vader realized it wasn't Sidious who sentenced him to a life trapped within his suit, but Padme and Obi-Wan, by refusing to see the truth that he believed he uncovered about the Jedi and Republic. But given Vader's initial loss of confidence and skills with the Force, the appearance that Sidious had masterminded the limitations of his suit, and the way in which he would perfectly fill the needed role of commander of the Empire's stormtroopers, Vader initially feared he could aspire to nothing more than the position of the Separatist general who came before him, becoming another Grievous for Sidious. So there we have it, why Vader feared he'd become the next Grievous for Sidious. Thank you very much to all of the Patreon members of Star Wars Reading Club, as your support is so greatly appreciated. You can find all of our social media links and a link to our Star Wars gaming channel in the description below for updates and even more Star Wars content. We love making these videos, so why not subscribe for more fun Star Wars theories and discussions. Also, if you enjoyed the video, think about giving a like or leaving a comment. If not for me, for Sand Hill.